Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS main slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Excuse me, just clear my throat. We got a great day of sports today. Not only do we have the NBA, we got the NCAA tournament, huge UFC card this weekend. No better time to sign up to Occupy Fantasy. So check those links in the description below. As a member, you get access to the model you see here, which we have for other sports as well. There's a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder, private Discord server full of DFS pros to help you improve your game. And leading up to each slate's lock, there is a 30-minute window where you could ask your lineup and slate specific questions. Also, if you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the slate. As always, I'm going to talk through game by game, team by team. I got the Occupy model up here. It's going to show us ownership, value ratings, etc. And yeah, I got an injury report open in the other window. And as I talk through these games, I'm going to slowly build a lineup on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Just keep in mind that it is very early in the day. The NBA is a very fickle beast, especially this late in the season. You're going to be playing a lot of guys that maybe you don't necessarily want to. Things change throughout the day as players are ruled out, etc. But we got a fun slate tonight. There's plenty of prize pools out there, so let's see if we can take a bite out of this money here. All right, so 8 game slate tonight. 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Only one game at 7. First game on the slate, we have the Hornets hosting the 76ers. The Hornets are 10.5-point underdogs at home, looking at a 227.5-point total here. Let's start with Charlotte, obviously a team whose season is pretty much over. But yeah, no LaMelo Ball, no James Bouknight, no Theo Maledon, no Cody Martin. So pretty thin in the backcourt. Then no Mark Williams. So their top center is out as well. So there is some decent value here to go around. I mean, most of these guys I just listed have been out for a while. So the prices have kind of adjusted to reflect that. We're seeing PJ Washington 6K flat on DK, 6,500 over on FanDuel. Nick Richards, who is the backup for Mark Williams, going to get the start at center again tonight. He's just under 6K on both sites. I don't mind these plays, Richards or Washington. I think they're both fine, but again, you're just going to keep in mind this is a tough matchup with Philadelphia. Gordon Hayward looks okay here. Don't hate Kelly Oubre as a play. His price has come down on DK. He's now just 7,200 over there. Terry Rozier, he's had some big games since LaMelo's gone down. Again, not a great matchup for him here, but I could see landing on him a little bit. It's just this is the first game on the slate. You got a healthy team here in Charlotte in a tough matchup, so it's really tough for me to want to prioritize anything. We're seeing decent ownership going to PJ Washington. I think he's probably your best play here for the Hornets. But that being said, I mean, it's really not a great matchup. And around 6K, I don't think it's a piece you have to force. So I'm not going to go ahead and pencil him in on either site quite yet. But yeah, a decent uh, game total here, pushing to 30 points. So I wouldn't feel terrible getting to a little bit of Charlotte. But again, the prices have adjusted for the injuries that they have. Um, Philadelphia now, no major injury news here. Jalen McDaniels is still questionable. He's been out, I think, for a couple games. Doesn't really change much. So as always, if you can get to Embiid, if you can get to Harden, they're two of the higher upside plays on the slate. Certainly Embiid in an easy matchup here against Charlotte has one of the highest raw point totals on the board. There is some small blowout risk when you look at that 10.5-point spread, but there's been a lot of games lately where we're looking at huge spreads, kind of expecting maybe there could be a blowout, and it ends up being a very close game, and those studs do go off in those environments. So Embiid's going to be my favorite play here from Philadelphia if you can afford him. That's a big if. And then James Harden, he always looks okay, especially on DK where he's sub 10K. I don't mind him over there. Secondary options like Maxey, Harris, Melton are fine. Not going to call any of them priorities or core play though. Core plays though. I really do like Embiid here. I'm not going to put him in yet. I want to kind of see how much value we have as we kind of talk through these games. But if we have enough, I could see getting to Embiid pretty aggressively in a very, very soft matchup against Nick Richards in a very soft Charlotte Hornets front court. All right, so moving into the next game on the slate now, we got a couple in that 7:30 window. We're looking at the Warriors at the Hawks. The Hawks are 4-point favorites at home. 248 point game total here. Massive total. Is the one of the highest totals we've seen all season actually. So let's start on the Atlanta side. Nothing really significant here. Jalen Johnson's probable. I think he's been out for a little bit, but he's not going to shake up that rotation all that much. Bogdan just got a nice fat contract, so maybe he's feeling a little extra motivation. But yeah, this is another team pretty healthy, kind of priced where they should be. But that being said, I mean, when you look at this total, I think it is worth getting to some pieces here. I'm a little bit surprised John Collins is only 5% owned on DK, where he's only 4,600. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at him there. Just take a look at his game logs. I know he hasn't been as effective as I think Atlanta wanted going into the season, coming off a game where he only had 14 fantasy points in 27 minutes. But at this price with such a high total, I do like Collins a lot, and I actually do consider him to be kind of a borderline core play over on DK, where he is just 4,600. So if we get better value, maybe I can pull him up this dummy build, but for now, I'm going to put him in there. Really like Trey Young on both sides, sub 10K. If you can't get to him, DeJounte Murray is certainly a solid consolation. Clint Capella, I was hoping we'd see more minutes consistently out of him with Quinn Snyder now the head coach, but the minutes have continued to fluctuate for him, so I don't mind him as a GPP center. He just really hasn't been hitting his ceiling, though, for me to want to click him here and use up one of those center spots. That's what we call opportunity cost, so not going to get to much Capella today. DeAndre Hunter looks fine, especially on FanDuel, where it's very hard to fill that small forward position. I think he's okay over there. Not quite going to call him a core play, but don't ignore this Atlanta team. I know I'm not really clicking them in on both sites yet, but with such a high total and a pretty close spread, this is an excellent game environment. I expect we see a few ceiling games out of Atlanta Hawks here. It's just tough to know exactly which ones. For now, I'm going to go ahead, add Collins to my DK build, and just kind of move on from there. So let's talk about Golden State now. On the other side of the ball, there is some opportunity here. I think Draymond's going to be out. He hit that 16 technical foul threshold. I want to keep an eye on this, but he is currently on the injury report as out with his league suspension. So no Draymond tonight. No Andrew Wiggins still dealing with major issues outside of basketball. All the best to him. Stephen Curry questionable. If he's out, obviously that's going to create massive upside for players like Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole. They're both going to look excellent here if Curry's out. I actually like them in tournaments even if he's in. But with both Wiggins and Dre out, Dante DiVincenzo becomes a core play on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and pencil him in. Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty consistent. We see him slide in the starting lineup. A lot of the time with Wiggins out, some of the time it is Kuminga, but with Draymond out tonight, I think we see both of them start. Kuminga, obviously, the lower ceiling and the lower floor as well. So let's just go ahead, get Dante in there, and then we got to wait and see on Curry. If Curry's in, great play here, excellent play. Um, yeah, would love to get to him. If he's out, though, I think we want to prioritize both Thompson and Thompson, excuse me, um, and Jordan Poole. So keep an eye on that one. But yeah, as things stand, I still think you can get to a lot of Clay in tournaments and feel good about it. That price is just too low. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put him in right now. 7,100 for Clay Thompson. Some of the ceiling games he's been flashing lately, he kind of seems like he's back into his peak form. I like him a lot. I'll go ahead and add him over on FanDuel as well. I think both Dante and Clay have small forward eligibility on FanDuel as well, so I'm not going to put Clay in that second shooting guard spot, so we have a little bit more flexibility as we go through this video here. Where are you, Clay? There you go. Whatever. For whatever reason, it's making me play him at shooting guard. We can adjust that if we have to as we go through. With Dre out, I do think we see more minutes for Kevon Looney here. He's fine as a center play. The issue is just he's priced up. 5,100 on DK, not terrible. You can no longer play him at power forward on FanDuel. Otherwise, I'd have a lot more interest in him over there. But at 5,900, I don't think I want to use up that center spot. If you're really scraping for value, Kuminga, assuming he starts here at 4,400 on DK, he's going to be a solid play as well. But for now, the priority is Dante. If Curry's in, he's good. If Curry's out, I think we want to get to a lot of Clay and Poole. And even with Curry in, I like Clay a lot. Not going to get to as much Jordan Poole with Curry in the lineup. But Klay Thompson, I think, regardless, is an excellent play on this 8-game slate. So Really, really good game environment. 248 point total. That's just massive. Moving into quite a different spot here. We got the Cavaliers hosting the Wizards. Cavs are 5.5 point favorites at home. Just a 221 point game total here. Jared Allen is out tonight. That is the significant piece of news for Cleveland. They've been resting Donovan Mitchell once in a while. He's not on the injury report. I expect he's in tonight. So we got Mitchell and Garland as viable guard plays. Seeing a lot of ownership going to Garland, where he's just 7,400 over on DK. Um, yeah, I mean that's kind of tough to get away from as things stand. I do like Garland at that $7,400 price tag. We're kind of building a balance build as we've begun here. Um, but over on FanDuel, Evan Mobley with Jared Allen out of the lineup, he's seeing increased usage, increased rebounding opportunity, and he's in a nice paced up spot here against a mediocre Washington Wizards defense. So I like Mobley a lot on both sides. I don't like that I've filled so many spots already. I'll probably pull some of these guys as we talk through things. But for now, I do think Mobley is worth prioritizing. But yeah, secondary options like Rubio, Okoro, Levert, I'm really not rushing to get to any of these guys unless we see Mitchell or Garland ruled out. But as things stand, Mobley is the priority. Really like Garland over on DK, probably going to be a little bit over owned. Um, but yeah, Donovan Mitchell's fine in tournaments as well. Nice matchup for Cleveland here. Moving over to the Washington side of things, no major injury news. So this is another team kind of priced where they should be. Monte Morris, as long as he's starting at point guard, I think he's viable value. Not a great matchup with Cleveland. These guys are all going to be paced down. Porzingis, where you can get him at just 8,600 on DK, I think he's fine. We're also getting a bit of a discount on both Kuzma and Bradley Beal. So if you're playing Wizards tonight, I certainly prefer to do it on DK. They all feel a little bit overpriced on FanDuel. Keep in mind, this is not a great matchup against the Cleveland defense. Even without Jared Allen, they're going to slow things down, and make it tough for these guys to kind of hit their median production marks. So I'm going to get a little bit of Morris here. I could see mixing in Porzingis, Kuzma, Beal, but there are no priorities for me on Washington in a tough matchup with the Cavs. Just a healthy team, kind of priced where they should be. All right, we're moving into the 8 o'clock window now. Another very interesting game here. We've got the Grizzlies at the Spurs. Spurs are 8.5 point underdogs at home. 234.5 point game total here. All right, so let's start with Memphis. They're probably the most popular team on this slate as things stand. Not really surprised by that. Steven Adams is out. Brandon Clark is out. John Morant is still out. So yeah, just look at these ownership numbers. We're seeing a ton going to Tillman. I think it's warranted though. Not only is Adams out, but his backup Clark is out as well. So we can get to Tillman and feel pretty good about it. I'm going to go ahead and add him on both sites. I think we still get power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which is certainly great to see. Quickly pulling up his game log. Coming off a pretty bad game, maybe that keeps his ownership down, but that was a very tough matchup against Miami. I think we see him get up to maybe 25, 30 fantasy points here. So at around 5K, I think he's a really solid play. Um, let's see. Over on DK, I think he's a bit more expensive in center only. He's still cheap. Center only, but cheap. So I don't mind getting to Tillman there. I could see pulling him by the end of this video. But yeah, as things stand, he's really solid. Tyus Jones with Jaw still out of the lineup looks good. His prices come back down to earth a bit. He was up in the mid to high 7K range. Now he's at 6,700 on both sites. I like him. Desmond Bain, if you could afford him, looks excellent here as well. 7,400 on DK. That is very appealing to me. So this is getting tricky now. There's so many plays I like through the early games, which is usually not something we see. So we're going to have to kind of pick and choose as we talk through things. But like I mentioned before, this is really a good night for a balanced build, I think. We have almost a full lineup here. Maybe I pull Clay. Let's say Steph's in. And that's kind of where we kind of start plucking things. But maybe I don't leave Tillman, and I like him a lot, but I don't know that he has enough upside to justify using that second center spot. So those are great plays, kind of borderline core plays for me, but I don't want to fill out a whole lineup just a few games into the slate. So, yeah, let's talk through things a little bit more over on FanDuel. At 8,400, Bain's definitely more expensive, obviously, but I still like him over there. I think that's a reasonable price tag. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. is another play for these Grizzlies I think you can consider. Really soft matchup here against the Spurs, but without Ja, I think this game should stay relatively competitive. We're looking at an 8.5 point total, but it is in San Antonio. And while the Spurs have been terrible, they're certainly tanking. They've been competitive lately. So I think that is notable, something to keep in mind. A lot to like on Memphis here. So Jackson, Bain, Jones, Tillman. I don't think you can go wrong playing any four of these guys on either site. Moving over to San Antonio now. No Charles Bassey. No Kem Birch. No Devontae Graham. That one's a little bit surprising to me. And then Bates Diop is questionable. So with Devontae Graham out, that should secure even more point guard minutes for Trey Jones. I think he looks good on both sides as long as he's in there. Zach Collins is fine. Only want to get to him on FanDuel where you could play him at power forward, though. It's 7K. Really not rushing to get to him. This is a much better matchup on paper than it usually is with Adams and Clark out of the lineup for bigs, but I don't know. I just can't prioritize him here. The one guy I really like for the Spurs is Jeremy Sochan on both sites. 6,300 on FanDuel feels a little bit expensive. 5,600 on DK, a little bit pricey there as well. But given his recent production, I think he can justify that. More of a tournament play though, not something I think you have to force in if you're playing cash games or small field single entry. Devin Vassell, the price is up on DK, 6,600. He hasn't been hitting value consistently, but the main reason for that is that his shot is not falling. He's getting the looks, the usage is there. So I think it's just a matter of time before we see some positive regression. So I'll go ahead and put in Vassell, put Clay in at that small forward spot, or it's not letting me put Clay in at shooting guard. I guess he no longer has small forward eligibility. Then we could go ahead and put DiVincenzo at shooting guard. Okay, so that kind of squares things away on FanDuel. Still around 6,300 per player, so nice balance build again as we kind of talk through things. Keldon Johnson's fine. I just don't like the price. He's almost 8K now. It's really going to be tough for me to want to get there. And then Sandro Makamushvili backing up Zach Collins here with Charles Bassey out of the lineup. He's okay for value, but he's priced well above min salary now, so I'm not going to be rushing to get to him either. The priorities here, Devin Vassell over on FanDuel. I like Sochan on both sides, kind of more of a tournament play. And then Trey Jones, as long as he's starting, I like that he should see a little bit of a bump in minutes with Devontae Graham out of the lineup now. That could also be a small boost to someone like Malachi Branham, but he's seen very inconsistent run lately, so I don't know that I'm going to get to him on an 8-game slate. But decent spot here for the Spurs. Not as many guys out as we've seen recently, though, so there's not as much value to go around, but I do like Vassell, especially on FanDuel. I like Sochan, and Trey Jones looks good here as well. All right, so moving into the next 8 o'clock game, we have the Bulls hosting the Timberwolves. The Bulls are 2.5 point favorites at home. It's the 224.5 point game total here. A little bit lower than I'd expect. Maybe bet the over in this spot if you're so inclined. Starting on the Bulls side of things, pretty healthy. Alex Caruso is questionable. Javonte Green is doubtful. If Caruso's out, you can get to some Patrick Beverly for value. Never play him excited about. Not exactly an offensive player, which means he's not exactly a fantasy slash DFS player. So not rushing to Beverly even with Caruso out of the lineup, but he would see a nice boost if that is the case. Similar to the Wizards, these guys got a big three here, all kind of priced where they should be. We like Vooch, we like DeRozan, we like Levine. They're all good, but can't call them great, especially in a game with a kind of low total compared to some of the other spots we have on the slate. So if you're landing on any three of them, I think they're fine, but it's tough for me to call anything a priority for this team. If Green and Caruso are out, and maybe we see Patrick Williams slide into the starting lineup on DK where he's only 3,900, that'd be interesting to me as a value piece. But again, as things stand, I'm really only interested in that big three, maybe Beverly if Caruso's out. But yeah, just not a great matchup, and they're all kind of priced where they should be. So maybe get some Levine, maybe get some DeRozan, maybe get some Vooch, but yeah, no priorities for me on Chicago. Over on the Minnesota side of things, once again, the whole front court is questionable. Still no Karl Anthony Towns, but Rudy Gobert is questionable, as is Naz Reid. I feel like every time we talk about this team, we say the same thing. If Gobert's in, he's a good play. If Gobert's out and Naz Reid is in, Naz Reid is pretty much a lock. You're going to have to get to him. So maybe leave yourself a little bit of flexibility until we get that news. But yeah, if Reid's out, that does provide a small boost to Gobert. But I don't know. If this team is just in, as far as those guys are concerned, I don't think you have to prioritize either of them. Certainly not Naz Reid if Gobert's in. But just keep in mind if Gobert is out, I know it sounds like a broken record, but if Gobert is out, you need to play Naz Reid on the slate. Still like Kyle Anderson, even though the price is getting a little bit ridiculous now, 7,500 on FanDuel. For Kyle Anderson feels a bit insane, pushing 7K on DK, but as a last man in a tough to fill forward position, I think he's fine. Anthony Edwards, come back down to earth over the last few games, but he still has a high upside at low ownership. So in tournaments, I don't mind him. Other than that, really nothing I'm prioritizing here. Pretty healthy team, at least in terms of where they're priced. Obviously, Cat's been out for weeks, so the prices have adjusted to that. So really nothing I'm prioritizing here for Minnesota unless Gobert is out and Naz Reid is in which case Naz Reid would be one of the best plays on the slate. All right, we got another 8 o'clock game here. I think this is the last 8 o'clock game. Um, we have the Pelicans at the Rockets. The Rockets are 5 point underdogs at home. We're looking at a 229 point game total here. On the Houston side of things, Ty Washington is down in the G League, so really no significant news here. So Houston's not really tanking the way I think I thought they would be. We're seeing a few more minutes from Sengun. I think he's okay as a GPP center, especially on DK where he's 6,900. Definitely boomer bust though. We've seen his minutes limited in certain matchups. Against New Orleans, I don't know that they need to play all that big, so definitely proceed with some caution there. Guys like KJ Martin are fine. Terry Easton, if he starts, is okay. Jabari Smith, if he starts, is fine. No priorities really for me on Houston here. They've been kind of banged up lately, and they seem healthy tonight, which means once again these guys are all a little bit overpriced. I think you can land on any of the starters in tournaments and feel okay about it. Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, both fine guard plays, but they're better guard plays on the slate. And once again, they're a bit overpriced just given the recent makeup of this team. All week they've been banged up, and today they're not. So everyone's a little bit pricier than they should be. So Houston's fine. Some of these pieces are okay, but really nothing I can consider a priority or a core option. Over on the New Orleans side of things, Alvarado's still out. No Zion, no surprise there. Those are the really only significant injuries we have to talk about. CJ McCollum's fine here. Always like him better with Ingram out of the lineup. That's no surprise. I actually really like Brandon Ingram on both sides, though. 8,100 on DK, 8,200 on FanDuel. Only small forward eligible, which makes it a little bit tougher to fit him. But he's been excellent. This is a great matchup. Let me go ahead and just take a look at what he's done recently. I know he's been working his way back from an injury. Um, but yeah, after missing 2 games, he played almost 40 minutes against the Lakers. So I think he's totally healthy. So if you want to get to some Brandon Ingram on both sides, I think he's excellent. That's really the only priority for me on the Pelicans here. Once again, McCollum's fine in tournaments. Maybe get to a little bit Trey Murphy. He feels overpriced though with Ingram and McCollum in the lineup. Then Joval, boomer bust center. Not someone I'm ever rushing to get to, but he does have a high ceiling if the chips kind of fall in his favor. But for now, I'm really only interested in Ingram as far as Pelicans go. All right, moving into the late games now. We get a couple after 10 o'clock. We get the 10 o'clock game looking at the Celtics at the Trailblazers. Celtics are 4.5 point favorites on the road. 230 point game total here. We'll start with Boston. All right, Jaylen Brown is available. Peyton Pritchard's out. Jason Tatum is questionable. That's surprising to me. And no Robert Williams. So Tatum's questionable. If Tatum's in, he's a great play. Obviously, high upside, 10-8 on both sides, reasonably priced in a great matchup against Portland. If he's out, though, Jaylen Brown becomes one of the best plays on the slate. So, once again, this might be a situation where you're going to want to leave yourself some lineup flexibility. If Tatum's out, Brown's excellent everywhere and a top priority play. 8,900 on DK, 9,200 on FanDuel. So keep an eye on that news. With Robert Williams out, we're seeing a little bit of a bump for Al Horford. Not enough for me to consider him a core play, though. But Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White are all okay as kind of last pieces in if you need a guard. I like Smart the best of the bunch. White probably has the highest ceiling, but Smart definitely the highest floor and the most consistent fantasy producer of the three. They'll all see a nice bump if Tatum's out, though, so keep that in mind. But as things stand, with Tatum in, really no priorities for me here. I like Tatum and Brown, but I'm not going to call either a core play. And then if Tatum is out, Jaylen Brown certainly will be a core option. So keep an eye on the news for Boston there. On the Portland side of things, we have Jeremy Grant listed as questionable. Dame's back and probable. If Dame's in, he's good. He should be. He's listed as probable. Other than that, really nothing I can rush to. I mean, if Grant's out, maybe we see more minutes for someone like Drew Eubanks. That should also secure minutes for both Matisse Thybulle and Cam Reddish. But at the same time, it's really tough for me to want to get to them just given how inconsistent they are in terms of fantasy production. So Dame is the one piece here I'm very interested in. And then if Grant's in, he's okay. But if he's out, maybe you get to Eubanks if he starts alongside Nurk. But I don't know that that's the way they'd go. We'd have to kind of keep an eye on this lineup. But for now, tough matchup with Boston, even with the high total. No one I'm really prioritizing for Portland. But if you're landing on Dame, I mean, it's Dame. You can feel pretty good about that one. All right, last game on the slate now. We got the Mavericks at the Lakers. So, yeah, this is a little bit of a tricky situation once again. Dallas, still no Luka Doncic. He's going to be out tonight, but Tim Hardaway is questionable, as is Kyrie Irving. JaVale McGee is questionable. Markieff Morris is questionable. Not really moving the needle is Markieff Morris. But if Kyrie's in, he's one of the best plays on the slate with Luka out of the lineup. But yeah, it's really tough to know if he's going to play or not, even if he's hurt or not. I don't know. It just seems like he's waiting for Luka to come back to start playing again, which is very strange. But he could be banged up, and if he is, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see him rest again tonight. If Tim Hardaway's out and Kyrie's in, that's only a plus for Kyrie Irving. But let's say both these guys are out. If they are, Jaden Hardy, Josh Green both become top priorities. They are priced up though, so if Kyrie's in, these guys are pretty much unplayable. 7,300 for Hardy's a little bit tough to stomach, but in a decent matchup with LA, I think if you get Kyrie and Hardaway out, you could go back to Green and Hardy and feel pretty good about it. Um, if Hardaway's out and Kyrie's in, I think you could still play a little bit of Josh Green. Not someone I'd ever be prioritizing in that situation, but yeah, just another tough situation. We got a lot of guys that are questionable, so again, maybe you leave yourself a little bit of room to pivot. But as things stand, it's really tough to prioritize anything. If Hardaway's in and Kyrie's out, I think he's one of the better plays on the slate. 5,900 on FanDuel, especially, he looked like a priority over there. But yeah, as is often the case with Kyrie teams, we have to kind of wait and see. So moving over to the LA side of the ball, we got Mo Bamba out. AD is probable. Still no LeBron James. So yeah, as long as LeBron is out, AD is a solid pay up option. Better on DK where he's only 10-7, but on FanDuel you are getting that power forward eligibility, so I don't mind him over there. D'Angelo Russell kind of put up a dud with AD out of the lineup the other night. I don't mind him around IK. I think there's better guard plays on this slate. I like the balance build, and I don't know that Russell's the type of player that kind of fits into that. So as things stand, AD is really my favorite Laker. Don't love anything else. I could see getting to some Beasley, Vanderbilt, Reeves as kind of secondary options, even Schroeder. But really, it's tough for me to want to prioritize any of them. Again, AD is great if you can afford him, but as things stand, I kind of favor that balance build. All right, so we're through the game by game now. I'll quickly hit refresh on the model while I take a look over on what we've built so far. On FanDuel, we got Clay, Vassell, Bain, DiVincenzo, Mobley, Tillman. That's a really solid core to start, and you're left with around 6,300 per player. Over on DK, we're looking at Garland, DiVincenzo, Collins, Mobley, Bain, left with 5,800 per player. So nice little cores here. Definitely leaning on the first half of these games. So maybe just make sure those spots are players in later games. You can pivot if you need to. All right, taking one last look at the model here, sorting by OF index. We talked about it early, very early in the video. Embiid is great if he's in, and he is going to be in. He's listed as probable. Just a very soft matchup against Charlotte. Probably the top raw point play on the slate. I like Davis. Don't mind Curry. If Curry is out, Poole and Clay become priorities. We already really like DiVincenzo for the Warriors. Damian Lillard looks fine here. James Harden looks okay. Don't mind Tatum, but Tatum is questionable. If Tatum is out, then Jaylen Brown becomes a priority. That's really the significant injury news we have to talk through. Oh yeah, and Kyrie Irving. If Kyrie's in, he's good. If he's out, we could take a look at Jaden Hardy and Josh Green once again for Dallas, but they are priced up, so I don't know that you have to force them. Desmond Bain, one of the most popular plays on either site. Totally get that. Jared Jackson, Xavier Tillman. Memphis just in a great spot here against San Antonio. And with Jaw, Clark, Adams out, they're all going to see a little bit of a bump in usage and upside. So all solid plays. To me personally, I think Ricky Rubio is overowned even at 3,100 flat, unless we get a couple guys ruled out for Cleveland. So maybe avoid that one in tournaments. And then, yeah, over on FanDuel, we're looking at similar situation. Evan Mobley, definitely more popular on FanDuel, but he's cheaper on DK, which is surprising to me. I like Mobley a lot on both sites. I consider him a priority. And then Devin Vassell on FanDuel, where he's a little bit cheaper. If that shot starts to fall, you're going to want to be in front of that positive regression. So that's a spot I would like a lot as well. Once again, my name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Check the links in the description below to sign up to Occupy today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Hit me up on Twitter. Say hi. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Take care and good luck.